Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly attract everything they desire while others struggle endlessly despite following every manifestation technique perfectly? There's a woman I know who spent 3 years doing everything the spiritual community told her to do. Morning affirmations, vision boards covering her bedroom walls, gratitude journaling, scripting her future in elaborate detail. She attended workshops, bought courses, meditated for hours, yet her bank account remained empty, her relationship stayed stagnant, and that dream career felt more distant than ever. Then something shifted. Not through another technique or guru's advice, but through a realization so simple it almost felt insulting. She discovered that while she was performing all these practices with precision, her internal world was broadcasting something entirely different. Her affirmations spoke of abundance, but her nervous system hummed with scarcity. Her vision boards displayed love, but her heart contracted with unworthiness. Her gratitude list proclaimed joy, but her body carried the weight of disappointment. The quantum field, it turns out, wasn't listening to her words. It was responding to something far more fundamental, something most people completely overlook in their pursuit of manifestation mastery. And once she understood this missing piece, everything changed. Not gradually, but almost instantaneously. Opportunities appeared, relationships transformed, and life began flowing in ways that seemed almost too good to be true. But here's what's fascinating about her story. She didn't learn a new technique. She didn't add more practices to her routine. Instead, she stopped doing most of what she thought was necessary and focused on the one thing the quantum field actually responds to, the one element that determines whether your desires manifest or remain perpetually out of reach. Most people approach manifestation like they're trying to convince a skeptical judge. They pile on evidence through their actions, thoughts, and rituals, hoping to build a compelling case for why they deserve what they want. But the quantum field isn't a courtroom, and it doesn't operate on logic or fairness. It functions more like a mirror, reflecting back the deepest truth of who you're being, not what you're trying to become. Think about it this way. When you tune a radio, you're not trying to force the station to play through sheer willpower. You're simply adjusting your receiver to match the frequency that's already broadcasting. The music was always there, waiting for the right alignment. Your desires exist in the same way as frequencies already present in the quantum field of possibilities. The question isn't whether they're available, but whether you're tuned to receive them. This is where most manifestation teachings miss the mark entirely. They focus on techniques to transmit your desires outward when the real work happens, in calibrating your internal receiver. Because the quantum field doesn't respond to your wishful thinking, your desperate pleading, or your perfectly crafted vision boards. It responds to the vibrational signature you emit moment by moment, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. Your body is constantly broadcasting information into this field. Every thought generates an electromagnetic pattern. Every emotion creates measurable changes in your heart rhythm. Every belief system shapes the neural pathways that filter your perception of reality. Together, these elements form what scientists call your bioelectromagnetic signature, a unique frequency that extends beyond your physical form and interacts with the quantum field in ways we're only beginning to understand. But here's where it gets really interesting. This signature isn't determined by what you consciously think or deliberately visualize. It's shaped by the unconscious patterns running beneath your awareness. The stories you tell yourself when no one is listening. The emotional states you default to when you're not actively trying to feel good. The identity you embody when you're not performing spiritual practices. This is why you can spend hours visualizing abundance while your subconscious mind rehearses scenarios of lack. You can affirm your worthiness while your nervous system operates from patterns of unworthiness established decades ago. You can script your dream life with precision while your body carries the cellular memory of disappointment and rejection. The quantum field reads the totality of your signal, not just the parts you're consciously directing. Most people exist in a state of vibrational contradiction without realizing it. Their conscious desires point in one direction while their unconscious programming pulls in another. It's like trying to drive with the accelerator and brake pressed simultaneously. You might move forward, but it's inefficient, exhausting, and often leads to breakdown. The quantum field doesn't judge these contradictions or try to resolve them for you. It simply reflects back the strongest, most consistent signal you're broadcasting. If your conscious affirmations carry a 10% charge while your unconscious fears and doubts carry a 90% charge, guess which reality you'll experience? The field mirrors your dominant frequency, not your preferred one. This explains why manifestation can feel so frustrating for so many people. They're working incredibly hard on the surface level while completely ignoring the deeper currents that actually determine their results. It's like trying to change your reflection in a mirror by adjusting the image rather than changing your position. The reflection will always match your actual stance, regardless of how much you wish it were different. But what if I told you there's a way to align these deeper currents with your conscious desires? What if the key to effortless manifestation isn't about doing more, but about becoming coherent? What if the quantum field is already listening, just not to what you think it's hearing? The woman I mentioned earlier discovered that manifestation isn't about convincing the universe to give you what you want. It's about embodying the frequency of already having it. Not pretending or visualizing or affirming your way into a different state, but actually shifting your fundamental vibration to match the reality you wish to experience. When this alignment occurs, the quantum field has no choice but to reflect it back as your lived experience. This might sound abstract, but there's solid science behind it. Researchers have measured how different emotional states create distinct patterns in our electromagnetic field. They've documented how coherent heart rhythms can influence the behavior of random number generators. They've observed how focused intention can affect the molecular structure of water. The quantum field isn't just a spiritual concept. It's a measurable aspect of reality that responds to consciousness in predictable ways. The challenge is that most people approach this from the wrong angle. They try to manipulate their frequency through external techniques instead of understanding how frequency is actually generated. They attempt to override their natural signal with artificial ones, creating even more internal conflict and confusion. True manifestation mastery comes from discovering how to generate authentic coherence between your thoughts, emotions, and embodied state. When these elements align, you don't need to convince the quantum field of anything. You simply become a clear transmitter of the reality you choose to experience, and the field responds accordingly. In the next part of this exploration, we'll dive deeper into the mechanics of this process. You'll discover exactly what creates vibrational coherence and why most people struggle to maintain it, even when they understand its importance. We'll explore the hidden patterns that keep you broadcasting mixed signals and reveal the specific steps to align your entire being with your desired reality. Because once you understand what the quantum field actually responds to, everything changes. Not just your manifestation results, but your entire relationship with life itself. The moment you step into vibrational coherence, something profound shifts in how you experience reality. It's not that the world around you suddenly changes, but rather that you begin to perceive and interact with possibilities that were always present but previously invisible to your awareness. Like adjusting the lens of a microscope to bring hidden structures into sharp focus, coherence reveals layers of reality that exist beyond ordinary perception. Most people live in what we might call vibrational static. Their thoughts pull in one direction, their emotions surge in another, and their physical body carries tension from years of unresolved patterns. This internal discord creates what quantum physicists recognize as interference patterns in the field. Just as two sound waves can cancel each other out when they're out of phase, conflicting internal signals can neutralize your manifestation potential entirely. Think of a time when you felt completely at peace with a decision. Maybe it was choosing to end a relationship that no longer served you, or finally committing to a path you'd been avoiding out of fear. In that moment of clarity, did you notice how effortlessly the external world seemed to support your choice? Doors opened, people appeared with exactly the resources you needed, obstacles dissolved without struggle. This wasn't coincidence. This was the quantum field responding to your coherent signal. The field operates on principles that seem counterintuitive to our action-oriented minds. It doesn't reward effort or persistence in the way we might expect. Instead, it responds to something much more subtle and powerful, the quality of your being. When your entire system aligns around a single frequency, you become what researchers call a coherent oscillator. Your electromagnetic field stabilizes, your nervous system finds its natural rhythm, and your consciousness operates from a state of integrated wholeness. But here's where most people get tripped up. They think coherence means feeling good all the time or maintaining some kind of artificial positivity. That's not coherence. That's performance. True coherence emerges when you stop trying to be anything other than what you authentically are in this moment. It's the difference between forcing a smile and feeling genuine joy, between repeating affirmations and embodying unshakable knowing. The quantum field doesn't differentiate between positive and negative emotions in the way our minds do. It simply responds to coherence or incoherence. You can be coherently angry, and the field will reflect that clarity back to you. You can be incoherently joyful, and the field will mirror that confusion. What matters isn't the emotional content, but the integrity of your signal. This is why some people seem to manifest easily even when they're not consciously working on it. They've learned to maintain internal coherence regardless of external circumstances. Their thoughts, emotions, and actions flow from a unified source rather than competing against each other. They don't need to monitor their vibration because coherence has become their natural state. Consider how this applies to the way you approach your desires. When you want something from a place of lack, you're broadcasting separation. The very act of wanting implies that you don't currently have what you're seeking. But when you desire something from a place of wholeness, you're broadcasting possibility. You're acknowledging potential rather than absence. The woman I mentioned earlier made this distinction when she stopped trying to manifest money and instead began embodying the frequency of someone who was already financially free. She didn't pretend to have money she didn't possess. Instead, she cultivated the internal state of security, abundance, and ease that comes with financial freedom. Her nervous system began to operate from safety rather than survival. Her decisions reflected long-term thinking rather than desperate quick fixes. Her energy became magnetic to opportunities rather than repelling them through neediness. This shift happens at the level of identity, not just belief. Beliefs are mental constructs that can be adopted or discarded relatively easily. Identity is the deeper current that determines how you show up in the world. It's the unconscious answer to the question, who am I when no one is watching? This identity broadcasts constantly through your posture, your breathing patterns, the micro expressions that cross your face, the way you move through space. The quantum field reads these subtle signals with extraordinary precision. It responds not to who you think you are, but to who you're actually being moment by moment. This is why transformation often happens in ways that surprise us. We might spend months working on changing our thoughts about money, only to have abundance show up when we finally release the need to prove our worthiness in relationships. Everything is connected in the field. Heal one area of incoherence, and other areas naturally begin to align. This is because coherence isn't compartmentalized. It's a whole system phenomenon that affects every aspect of your experience. When you become coherent in how you relate to yourself, that coherence ripples out into how you relate to others, to opportunities, to challenges, to life itself. But maintaining coherence requires something most people resist: the willingness to feel everything without trying to fix or change it. Coherence isn't achieved by eliminating uncomfortable emotions or difficult thoughts. It emerges when you learn to be present with whatever arises without fragmenting into resistance or attachment. This presence creates what scientists call a state of optimal arousal. Your nervous system finds its sweet spot between the hypervigilance of anxiety and the collapse of depression. In this balanced state, your brain waves synchronize, your heart rhythm becomes coherent, and your entire bioelectromagnetic field stabilizes into a powerful, unified signal. From this state, manifestation stops feeling like work and starts feeling like play. You're no longer trying to force outcomes or control timelines. Instead, you're dancing with the field, responding to its subtle invitations, allowing synchronicities to guide your actions. You begin to trust that the field is always working in your favor, even when appearances suggest otherwise. The implications of this understanding extend far beyond personal manifestation. When you operate from coherence, you become a stabilizing force in any environment you enter. Your presence helps others find their own coherence. Your clarity cuts through confusion. Your calm centers chaotic situations. You discover that changing your internal state is the most powerful way to influence external reality. In the next part of our exploration, we'll examine the specific practices that generate and maintain this coherent state. You'll learn how to recognize when you've slipped into incoherence and how to realign quickly and naturally. We'll also explore why most manifestation techniques fail to produce lasting results and how to approach your desires from the field of infinite possibility rather than personal limitation. Because once you taste true coherence, you'll never want to operate from fragmentation again. The field becomes your ally rather than something you're trying to manipulate, and life transforms from struggle into flow. The practices that generate coherence aren't complicated rituals or elaborate techniques. They're surprisingly simple, which is precisely why most people overlook them. We've been conditioned to believe that transformation requires complexity, that the most profound changes demand the most sophisticated methods. But the quantum field operates on elegant simplicity. It responds to clarity, not complexity. The first practice is what I call the coherence reset. This isn't meditation in the traditional sense. You're not trying to empty your mind or reach some transcendent state. Instead, you're learning to recognize the felt sense of coherence in your body and return to it whenever you notice you've drifted into static. Here's how it works. Sit quietly and place one hand on your chest, one on your belly. Begin breathing slowly, allowing your exhale to be slightly longer than your inhale. As you breathe, scan your internal landscape. Notice where you feel contracted, where energy feels stuck or chaotic. Don't try to fix these sensations. Simply acknowledge them with the same neutral awareness you might observe clouds passing across the sky. Now, recall a moment when you felt completely at ease with yourself. Not necessarily happy or excited, but deeply settled. Maybe it was watching a sunset, holding a sleeping child, or sitting by the ocean. Feel into that memory, not just mentally, but somatically. Let your nervous system remember what coherence feels like. Your breathing will naturally deepen, your muscles will soften, and something inside will settle. This settling is coherence. It's not a peak state or spiritual high, it's your natural baseline when you're not fighting against what is. From this place, your electromagnetic field stabilizes, your heart rhythm becomes coherent, and your signal to the quantum field becomes clear and strong. The second practice involves what I call identity archaeology. Most people try to build new identities on top of old ones, creating layers of contradiction that muddy their signal. Instead, you need to excavate the unconscious programming that's been running your life from the shadows. Start by noticing the automatic thoughts that arise when you imagine having what you desire. If you want financial abundance, what happens inside when you picture yourself wealthy? Do you feel deserving, or do subtle voices whisper that you're not worthy? If you desire love, what sensations arise when you imagine being cherished? Does your heart open, or does it contract with old wounds? These automatic responses reveal the hidden beliefs that shape your vibrational output. They're not right or wrong, they're simply information about the patterns that have been unconsciously influencing your field. Once you become aware of them, you can begin to choose consciously rather than reacting from outdated programming. The third practice is frequency matching. This goes beyond visualization or positive thinking. You're learning to embody the actual vibrational quality of your desired reality. If you want to manifest creativity, spend time feeling into what creative flow actually feels like in your body. If you desire peace, discover the somatic signature of genuine tranquility. This isn't about pretending or forcing yourself into states you don't authentically feel. It's about exploring the full spectrum of human experience and learning to access states that support your growth. You might discover that abundance feels like spaciousness in your chest, or that love feels like warmth spreading through your entire being. What makes these practices different from traditional manifestation techniques is that they focus on becoming rather than getting. You're not trying to manipulate the field into giving you what you want. You're aligning yourself with frequencies that already exist within you, waiting to be activated and expressed. The quantum field doesn't care about your personal history or the stories you've told yourself about why you can't have what you desire. It only responds to your present moment signal. This means that transformation can happen instantaneously when you shift from broadcasting old patterns to embodying new possibilities. But here's what most people don't understand about this process. The field will test your new signal by presenting you with situations that activate your old patterns. This isn't punishment or evidence that the process isn't working. It's recalibration. The field is giving you opportunities to choose consciously instead of reacting automatically. Let's say you've been working on embodying abundance, and suddenly you receive an unexpected bill. Your old pattern might be to panic, to immediately contract into scarcity consciousness. But if you've been practicing coherence, you have a choice point. You can feel the initial reaction without being consumed by it, then consciously return to your abundant frequency. Each time you make this choice, you strengthen your new vibrational identity. You're literally rewiring your nervous system to default to coherence instead of chaos. The field registers this shift and begins reflecting back experiences that match your new frequency. This is why manifestation often happens in waves, rather than linear progression. You might experience a period of rapid alignment followed by what seems like stagnation, but what's actually happening is integration. Your system is assimilating the new patterns, making them stable and sustainable. The field is infinitely patient and precise. It will continue reflecting your most consistent signal until you consciously choose to broadcast something different. This isn't about perfection or maintaining some impossible standard of positivity. It's about becoming increasingly aware of your vibrational choices and selecting the frequencies that align with your authentic growth. Many people abandon their practices during integration phases because they mistake this natural rhythm for failure. They think that if they were doing it right, everything would be smooth and effortless all the time. But mastery comes through learning to maintain coherence, even when external circumstances are challenging. The field doesn't test you to make you suffer. It tests you to help you develop vibrational stability. Every challenging situation is an invitation to deepen your coherence, to discover that your peace doesn't depend on external conditions. When you can maintain your frequency regardless of what's happening around you, you become truly powerful. This power isn't the ability to control outcomes or force reality to conform to your preferences. It's the capacity to remain coherent regardless of circumstances, trusting that the field will reflect your authentic signal in perfect timing. From this place, life becomes a creative collaboration rather than a battle of wills. The woman I mentioned earlier discovered this when she stopped trying to manifest specific outcomes and started focusing on maintaining coherence throughout her day. She would practice her coherence reset each morning, setting her vibrational tone before engaging with the world. Throughout the day, she would notice when she slipped into old patterns and gently returned to her centered state. Within weeks, her entire reality began shifting, not because she was working harder or doing more manifestation techniques, but because her signal had become clear and consistent. The field could finally reflect her authentic desires without interference from contradictory programming. Her bank account began growing through unexpected opportunities. Relationships that had been stagnant suddenly deepened or naturally dissolved. Career doors opened that she hadn't even known existed. But most importantly, she felt at peace with herself in a way she never had before. This peace wasn't dependent on external success. It was the natural result of internal coherence. She had learned to trust the field's intelligence rather than trying to micromanage every detail of her manifestation process. She discovered that the universe was far more creative and generous than her limited human mind could imagine. In our final exploration, we'll examine what happens when you fully surrender to the field's intelligence while maintaining clear intention. You'll discover the paradox of effortless manifestation and why the most powerful creators appear to do the least while achieving the most. We'll also explore how to recognize when the field is responding to your coherent signal and how to allow your desires to manifest without interference from doubt or impatience. Because ultimately, the quantum field responds to one thing only: the truth of who you are when all pretense falls away. And that truth is far more magnificent than anything you could ever try to become. When mastery arrives, it appears deceptively simple. The woman who had struggled for years with elaborate manifestation routines eventually found herself living from such natural coherence that she forgot she was even practicing anything. Her desires manifested with an ease that seemed almost anticlimactic. Not through force or strategy, but through a quality of being that had become as natural as breathing. This is the paradox at the heart of quantum manifestation. The more you try to control the process, the more you interfere with its natural intelligence. The field operates on principles that our action-oriented minds struggle to comprehend. It responds not to your efforts to make things happen, but to your willingness to allow what wants to emerge through you. Think of how a master musician approaches their instrument. They're not fighting the piano keys or wrestling with the violin strings. Instead, they've developed such intimate relationship with their craft that technique dissolves into pure expression. The music flows through them rather than from them. Their years of practice haven't made them more controlling, but more receptive. The same principle applies to working with the quantum field. True mastery comes when you stop trying to manage outcomes and start dancing with possibility. You learn to sense the field's subtle currents and align your actions with its natural flow. This doesn't mean becoming passive or abandoning your desires. It means becoming so attuned to the field's intelligence that your personal will and universal will merge into one coherent movement. Most people never reach this level because they're afraid to let go of control. They believe that if they stop pushing and forcing, nothing will happen. But the opposite is true. When you release the need to micromanage every detail, you create space for the field to work its magic in ways that exceed your limited imagination. The field operates from a perspective that encompasses all possibilities simultaneously. Your human mind can only perceive a tiny fraction of the potential pathways available in any given moment. When you insist on specific outcomes through specific means, you're actually limiting the field's ability to deliver your desires through the most elegant and efficient routes. This is why surrender isn't giving up. It's graduating to a more sophisticated level of creation. Instead of trying to force square pegs into round holes, you learn to sense which doors are already opening and walk through them with confidence. You begin to trust that the field's intelligence far exceeds your personal planning abilities. But surrender without intention is just drift. The field needs a clear signal to work with, a coherent frequency that communicates your authentic desires. This is where most spiritual teachings miss the mark. They emphasize letting go without first establishing what you're letting go into. True manifestation mastery requires both clarity of intention and complete openness to how that intention manifests. Think of intention as the destination and surrender as your willingness to let the field choose the route. You might want to end up in Paris, but you don't insist on taking a specific flight at a specific time through specific connections. You trust that there are countless ways to reach your destination, many of which you couldn't have imagined when you first set your intention. The field responds to this combination of clarity and flexibility with remarkable precision. When you're coherent about what you desire but unattached to how it arrives, you become a perfect receiver for the field's creative intelligence. Synchronicities multiply, opportunities appear from unexpected directions, and your path forward becomes illuminated step by step. This process requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to time. Most people approach manifestation with linear thinking, believing that effort applied over time will eventually produce results. But the quantum field operates outside conventional time constraints. Realities can shift instantaneously when the right conditions are met. What seems impossible today can become inevitable tomorrow through a single moment of perfect alignment. The woman I've been describing experienced this when she finally stopped tracking her progress and started trusting the process. She had been monitoring every sign, analyzing every coincidence, looking for evidence that her manifestations were working. This constant evaluation was actually interfering with the field's natural flow. The moment she released her need for proof and simply maintained her coherent frequency, everything accelerated. Within days, she received a call about an opportunity she had forgotten she'd even applied for months earlier. The timing was perfect. The terms exceeded her expectations, and the whole situation felt effortless, despite requiring skills she had been developing for years. She realized that the field had been orchestrating this outcome long before she was consciously aware of it. This is how the field operates when you're not interfering with its intelligence. It begins arranging circumstances, aligning people, and preparing opportunities long before they appear in your conscious awareness. Your job isn't to figure out how everything will work, but to maintain the coherent frequency that allows these arrangements to manifest in your experience. The field doesn't respond to desperation or urgency. These emotional states create interference patterns that muddy your signal. Instead, it responds to what I call sovereign certainty. This is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your desires are already fulfilled in the quantum realm of possibilities. You're not trying to make something happen. You're allowing something that already exists to become visible in your reality. This knowing isn't intellectual or based on positive thinking. It's a cellular recognition of your inherent wholeness and creative power. When you embody this frequency, you stop asking the field to give you what you want and start recognizing that you are the field expressing itself through your unique perspective. From this understanding, manifestation becomes less about getting something from outside yourself and more about allowing your true nature to express itself fully. Your desires aren't separate from you, they're aspects of your authentic self-seeking expression through your life experience. The field isn't some external force you need to convince or manipulate. It's the very fabric of your being responding to your most honest signals. This realization transforms everything. You stop seeing yourself as separate from your desires, waiting for them to arrive from somewhere else. Instead, you recognize that you and your desires are different facets of the same coherent system. When you align with this truth, manifestation stops being a mystery and becomes as natural as a flower blooming or a river flowing toward the sea. The quantum field responds to one thing only: the authentic expression of who you truly are beneath all conditioning, fear, and limitation. When you learn to broadcast this essential frequency consistently, reality has no choice but to reorganize itself around your truth. This isn't magic or wishful thinking. It's the fundamental nature of how consciousness interacts with the quantum substrate of existence. Your true power lies not in learning new techniques or accumulating more knowledge, but in remembering and embodying what you've always known at the deepest level. The field has been waiting for your authentic signal all along. When you finally allow it to broadcast clearly, everything you've ever desired begins moving towards you with the inevitability of gravity itself. This is the one thing the quantum field responds to. The frequency that transforms seeking into finding, wanting into having, and struggle into flow. It's been available to you in every moment, waiting patiently for you to stop interfering and start allowing the magnificent truth of your being to shine through.